What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode number 3 of the Choose Wisely podcast. For this podcast, we have a very special guest. His name is Mike Soster. Mike is an entrepreneur slash gym owner. He started his first gym called Functions of Life about 12 years ago and actually grew it to become one of the most successful gyms in the entire Cleveland area. Mike is a very good friend of mine, so I asked him to hop on this podcast with me. And we talk about a lot of great things. We talk about who Mike is as a person, how he started his gym, and how he was able to grow it to become as successful as it is today. So with all that being said, I'm very excited to show you guys this episode. Let's get right into it. Mike, how are we doing today?
Doing good, man. Had to leave the 8-month-old baby at home, but it's all good.
All good now?
Worth it.
Beautiful. So Mike, just to, get into this podcast, I don't know how much I've told you about it, but essentially I want this podcast to be a way to help young adults and people who really don't know what they want to do with their life. I want this to be a way for them to hear from a person like you and be able to learn firsthand what it's like to actually experience what you do. And so with that being said, when you were young, you started what many people would probably call one of the harder businesses to succeed at. And not only did you dive straight into this very difficult business and do pretty well, but you succeeded incredibly. And so I'm just curious, when you look back at your younger self, what sort of mindset or mentality did you have, do you think, that gave you the ability to just dive into this and actually do as well as you did?
Yeah, that could be a long answer, but I'm going to try to do my best here. There's different phases of what I went through personally in my life and what kind of got me to where I am right now. I graduated high school. I went to the military 6 years. I was a military fitness trainer for the duration of that time. Ended up going to East Carolina, get my degree in fitness, moving out to San Diego, coming back home. And throughout all that, you're still trying to figure yourself out. You're still trying to figure out, what is it I'm trying to do here? I know I have an interest in fitness and sports performance, but you don't really know what that is until you get way more into it. And so there's different angles you can take. You can go adult fitness, you can go youth, sports performance, but you learn very quickly that the adult fitness pays the bills more than anything else. Now, it depends on what your business model is and stuff, but sports performance, you have athletes that are in season for sports for a majority of the year, especially if they're multi-sport athletes. So you're not training them and bringing in revenue from athletes that are playing sports. Mm-hmm. So over the years, you have to kind of figure that out. But so working for other fitness places, I realized that, from my perspective, things were not being done correctly. Correctly as in employees weren't getting paid properly. And the way the businesses are run are not for the clients. It's more like, all right, what generates the most money? We get it. It's a business. You do have to generate money. That's the point of a business. But it's way more than that. And what I realized is when you take care of people, everything else kind of follows. The things that you usually want follow after that. If you take care of someone's need, if they have a need for, a young guy that just wants to put on 10 pounds, a mom of 3 kids that needs to get back into fitness, get her confidence back and lose 20 pounds and feel good about themselves again. And, a dad that just wants to lose his gut and get rid of his shoulder pain and back pain. If you solve these things for these people, they have no reason to leave you. There's one part of it. So, they're going to keep coming to you and they're going to realize over the years how much more you're even helping them. And so with the fitness world, there's a lot that you can do for people. And I think over the years, you realize more and more how gratifying that is. And so it just drives you more. Now, going back to your question, what kind of drove me to do all this? And I had a lot of fear of failure. And that drives people to do many things. Sales is typically driven by it could be driven by fear. And so when you're trying to sell it on yourself on if I should do this fitness business or if I should do any business, I don't want to fail. So you end up working very, very hard trying not to fail. And I'm not saying that it was all success. There was a lot of failures in there. And there was a lot of failures in there that I did not broadcast to other people. You know, there could have been some years in there that everyone's like, hey, man, I saw, you know, your gym is doing well and everything. I'm like, they see like 6 videos I posted and it looks like a lot of people in there, but I don't think they really know what's happening. And you got to grind through those times that are not easy. And so, but when it comes down to it, it was, you know, I loved the meaning behind what you're doing, helping people. And sometimes some people don't even know they need your help until they start getting it. And they're like, wow, I didn't realize this didn't have to be an issue in my life anymore. You solved it, you know? And so then they tell, if you do a good enough job, they tell 10 people. And so if you have 10 people that tell 10 people, and then those 100 people tell 10 people, all of a sudden you really have something there. And I think that's what happened over the years.
You know, you saying this, it sounds obvious, but in your experience, the gyms that you worked at, they did not have this mindset.
There's so many different parts of it. And with a business, any business, the business owner has to look at, okay, what's the temperature in the room? What kind of music are we playing? What's the greeting they get when they walk in the door? Do they come in and they only talk to that one employee and nobody else says hi to them? It's a lot of the little things. So if you create that culture and make it to where someone walks in your doors and you don't give them a reason to walk out, you know, there's plenty of reasons to stay. I say temperature. It's very important when someone comes in at 5:30 in the morning to work out, and if it's a little chilly and all they remember is how it's so cold that it's so hard to get out of bed knowing that you go to a cold gym or something. It's got to be the right temperature. The music that you're playing, that could drive people away, and they don't always tell you the reasons that they leave too. They're like, oh, you know, we'll be back, whatever, you know, they give you some BS answer. Mm-hmm. But you know, there was some type of customer service piece along the way that maybe took them out of it. Maybe their trainer wasn't paying as much attention to them or something. They didn't seem like they cared, or, you know, they weren't being motivated by the fact that they arrive before their trainer arrives or something like that. But it's all the little things, and it's not just the fitness business. It's the details and everything matter. And so I got that from the Air Force. Attention to detail is one of our core values. And so, trust me, I was not like that before the military, but you know, you come to realize all these little things make your business.
How would you describe the military or like the Air Force? How did that affect the training regiment that you use, like how you train people?
Yeah.
And at least in my experience since working out at your place, I'm not very used to, you know, the full body workout system that you use. And so I'm just curious, did the Air Force, what kind of effect did that have on how you decided to train these people?
The Air Force had no effect on any of that.
Really?
It was actually a place that I interned at in San Diego. It was called Fitness Quest 10. And I worked for a guy named Todd Durkin. And so some may say he's one of the heads of fitness in the United States and the world, whatever. Very popular guy. But it was more so, I still didn't even get it from him, but I got you can make your own philosophy from him. And as long as you have meaning behind what you're doing and the reasons behind it, sure. Now, what you were referring to is the method of doing a lot more full body with some people. Does it always make sense? No. I mean, if you have all the time in the world and if you have a gym available to you and you can split up your body parts and do the bro split thing and great, and you'll be in the gym 12 hours a week. Not everybody can do that, especially as you get older. So the full body method of training, it doesn't have to skip all the way to full body. It can go from your bro split to more of like an upper body, lower body, and then it can go to, okay, I'm just doing 3 days a week, full body strength training. Now, what we realized is 45-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 55-year-olds, busy life, got 3 or 4 kids. They're not making it to the gym even 3 times a week sometimes. So if we know we're only going to see them 2 times in the week, we got to tap into all muscle groups right now. And we've realized that if you know you only have that much time in the gym, it's much more effective to just do, someone might say, oh, you're only hitting triceps 2 times with 2 different exercises. I'm like, yeah, effective, very effective. It makes it to where, like, if you just do your pushing movements on a Monday, chest and triceps and shoulders, and then they make it to the gym on Thursday, and it's like, well, we got to do legs. What about your pulling muscles? When are you going to do them? Oh, we'll do them next Monday when we come in. Okay, when are you going to do chest and triceps again, or those muscle groups? It's like, well, then we'll hit them on Thursday. I'm like, okay, so you've waited 10 days to do the same muscle group when you could have just hit them Monday, Thursday, and then the next Monday again in lesser sets, I'm not saying reps, lesser exercises, still just as effective. And we've come to realize through trial and error a little bit that was more effective. And so even now, I have a much busier life than I did 5 years, 10 years ago. If I know I need to get a really good workout in, I'm doing, at the very minimum, I'll do full body, I'll do 2 pushing exercises, 2 pulling, 2 leg exercises, and I might only do 2 sets of each. And many, many people will say, well, that's not effective. I'm like, well, are you saying if I didn't go, that would be effective? Like, I made it. So when your life gets busier, because it's not all just about working out, there's all these different aspects of your life. And if you have a weak part, a weak link in that with your relationships, your finances, your career, your own legacy even, if you have a weak link in there, it's going to make everything crumble at some point. So balance out your fitness. Sure, if you're obsessed with fitness, and that's different. You're in that 2 to 3% of people that are just obsessed with it. But if you want to be someone that works on those other aspects of your life as well, but also keep fitness as an important part of it, then find the most efficient way to do your workouts. And so we believe it's full body workouts. And, so.
Did you have any mentors to help you out throughout this process, or was it mainly through learning through trial and error and just your own knowledge of fitness and what you learned in the Air Force?
Yeah, like I said, Todd Durkin and a lot of the people that work for him at Fitness Quest 10 were my mentors. Oh. And a lot of it is more so work ethic. Like, sure, they're in fitness, but I have other mentors as well that's just like, I know they're doing good work. They care about their industry. They care about the people they're dealing with. They always give back. Those are important things. And so I like seeing those kind of mentors, but also the ones that balance everything in their life. You'll get older and realize that you have to balance out family and your relationships with your friends. Like, your friends don't want to be like, wow, we haven't seen you, man, in like 6 months. Like, you don't want to be like that. You have to balance that out. You have to go golfing. I make sure that it's in my schedule.
Yeah, 100%.
But you can't let any of those parts of your life kind of deteriorate. Mm-hmm. And so when I look at some of the mentors that I've had in my life, it's the ones that mean the most are the ones that I've seen them balance out their life the best. And yeah, sometimes you go hard at one thing, be like, I got to grind. Right now, it's middle of January. I am very busy with fitness stuff, 2 different gyms here in Cleveland, and just other projects that I have going on, very busy. But so I'll go hard at this over here, but then I'll focus on other areas harder. We're going on vacation in March, so that's going to be some relaxation time that you definitely need. So
can you run me, as I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of people would say starting and running a gym is one of the hardest businesses to do. Could you kind of explain to me some of the early struggles you had with starting Functions of Life? Functions of Life, I don't know if he mentioned, Functions of Life is the name of his first ever gym that he started. Could you run me through some of the struggles or the main struggles you had?
Yeah. In your mind, you're doing some of the best work you've ever done in your life. And you're providing a value and a service that in your mind is great. And you can't believe that people aren't rushing to your help. You know what I mean? And you quickly learn that this isn't the forefront of people's priorities, but you want it to be because you know what effect taking care of themselves could have on everything else in their life. You know that. They don't really know that. They're just like, oh yeah, I should work out. You know, it's like, no, you really should. And it's just constantly trying to get people to see what you see. And even to this day, like I've had Functions of Life for 14 years now. I've been in the fitness industry for 21 years. And you're still debunking myths like, should women use weights? Should 10-year-old kids use weights? It's like, yes. And we're still debunking these things after this many years. So it's a fight that you have against society, that you're just trying to, we knew smoking was bad for us for so many years. Didn't stop anybody. Like, if you tell somebody smoking's bad for you, they're like, okay, I love smoking. Like, just the knowledge of it does not get them to quit. So fitness, oh yeah, I know I should work out. It's like, until you actually dive in and realize what kind of benefits it could have in your life, you don't really know, So the hardest part was getting people on board with something I believed in more than anything in my life. I left the military. I had a great job. If I would have stayed in the civilian world and did radar navigation systems for these aircraft, then I probably would have done pretty well in my life. I couldn't go that path. I'm sure some people that cared about me in my life, maybe my parents, like they're just like, what are you doing? You got this like good path right here. But I knew if I did that, I'd be separated from my family for the next 20 years. And I'm a family person. So I could not go down this road of something I wasn't completely passionate about. I was good at it, sure, but I wasn't completely passionate about it like I was with this. And I'm like, how do I make this work? And I was almost a little naive. I didn't know how little you make in the fitness business, but it doesn't have to be like that. It determines what path you take in the fitness business. But you don't, people know that it's not a very high paying job, but I wanted to change that. So after working at these other places, I'm like, okay, people that work for me, they'll be the highest paid trainers. I mean, they'll be qualified, they'll be knowledgeable, they'll have expertise, but I need to make sure they're the highest paid trainers in our area, because that's what we deserve. Unless you want your career field to die out, which it will. And then you'll just have trainers out there that are 20, 21 years old be like, oh, I just got my certification on Saturday. And they'll do it for 3 years and then move on to do something that they don't require a degree for, because they're just kind of jumping around jobs. And so yeah.
So when I talk to you and you explain to me, the benefits of working out and why people should be working out with you, in my head, it'd be easier. It's very easy for you to do that. Would you say the harder part was just getting people in the door so that you would have the opportunity to explain that to them? Or was it actually the process of once they're in, keeping them?
Once they're in, it was never a problem keeping them, because we made sure we had other systems in place to where they realized when they came, they get a sense of community. They all of a sudden have multiple trainers, multiple people that make them feel like they're cared for, and they like that type of service. Ask the question again.
I guess my actual question is, what did you do to get people in the door? Did you do anything special or specific to drive the actual traffic to Functions of Life? Because I'm assuming people aren't just walking in your door randomly. You had to do what sort of marketing did you do to help Functions of Life grow to where it became today?
Sure, there's a lot of options for marketing and I've done most of them. and most of them were a waste completely. And if I were to go back, I can't imagine how much money I would save on, we were in the magazine. I'm not going to say the magazine, but like we were in the magazines. We did Facebook ads and stuff. Don't get me wrong. Some of that stuff still works, but now the amount of money that you have to put into it and the ROI on the type of business that we have is you got to make sure, your marketing spear, there's every part of that spear needs to be strong and the tip needs to be very sharp for you to get that fish, So the best way over the years that we've always been successful at is creating raving fans, providing a great service that people want to talk about, because these same people are going to have wine with their friends on Friday and they can't help but talk about their experience and how good it was during the week at your facility. And people love referrals. I mean, they same thing with movies and restaurants. Once you hear that something is good, then all of a sudden their walls are down and they're like, you know what? I'm going to give them a call, and they easily call you. If you get something on Facebook, Instagram, something in your face about fitness and, 6-week challenge, we guarantee results, this and that. They're getting so much of that from all different angles. It's almost like, it's too much or something. So referrals over the years, that was the way, man.
Yeah.
Like if I look back, if I just focus on providing a great service and even asking for referrals, you have to ask. You can't just assume people are going to just bring all their friends. You have to ask them for reviews, Google reviews, Facebook reviews. And if you don't ask, they're not necessarily always talking about you. Mm-hmm. But it's like, hey, do you have like 3 people that you have in mind that would, be great members here at the gym and really, help nurture our culture and everything like that? And if you do, can I have their names? Do you mind if I contact them? And if you just ask for that, you'd be so surprised, because if you have 100 members and if 50 of those members give you 2 people, you're really onto something. Yeah. These are much more qualified leads than what it would be otherwise, because it's like, hey, I spoke to so-and-so, they come to the gym, they've been coming here 3 months, and they wanted me to reach out to you, and I wanted to talk about our gym a little bit. They said they might be a good fit for you, and I want to give you a really good promotion on like getting your foot in the door and just see what we do.
Yeah.
And it's so effective, but it's over time, the members that you have, and if you've already asked them, then you've already like went down that path. So you do need new people at some point.
I know you said you watched episode 2 with Luke Schimpf. I don't know if you remember this part of it, but we actually talked about, the power of just asking, like just having the balls to ask.
Yeah.
Honestly, what I've been doing after my podcast, and I was going to do this after our podcast, is I was going to ask you if you knew 3 names of people who would be willing to hop on a podcast with me. People don't realize that is just having the nuts to ask is one of like the greatest skills, or not even, I wouldn't even call it a skill, but just greatest things that you can do in any business. Sales, if you're anything creative like this, just ask. Never hurts. But
you are definitely correct.
Yeah. And so I wanted to ask you about this, because honestly, I never thought about this, but those little things that you talked about, like temperature and the type of music that you played. Is there any other small, I love that. Like, is there any other small things that you'd be able to talk about?
This is endless. It could be the distance that you are away from somebody when you're talking to them. It could be, you have to gauge what they need in their life. And if there's somebody that just, maybe they're lacking personal touch, and when you help them in to your office to do body fat or whatever, you want them to let their guard down a little bit. So you maybe put your hand on their elbow a little bit, be like, come on in, something as simple as that. It's not for everybody, but like you have to pick up on that with people. Mm-hmm. You have to see how motivated they are at the beginning. And if they're not very motivated, you have to treat them just differently. So it's all in your conversation. It could be where your first discussion is about fitness when you come into the gym. If you come and it's loud and there's people walking around and you're just standing there talking and you're just like this or whatever, hands like this, or you're just kind of, they're gonna get a certain sense of feel on that. And so you need to be in a quieter space, away from everybody else. You need to be not in so much of a dominant position, things like that. And once again, temperature, music, the volume of the music, that's another big one too. And they have to feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. And so when someone feels comfortable and they feel like they could be capable of this thing that you're trying to get them to do, then they're much more likely to at least be open to hearing what you can do for them. So, but other things, like it's snowing out right now. You have to make sure that walkway is shoveled all the time. Now, my employees probably are like, why is Mike giving me such a hard time? Like, but it's so important because it's all about the feel they have from the walk from their car inside the facility, getting ready for their workout and everything. It's every little thing. So if there's a little bit of slush out there, it's not good. So ever since the beginning, I was always very focused on these little things. Now, how I handled it with employees, 10 years ago, I might have been down their throats a little bit more, be like, you have to do this. Maybe I could have explained to them a little bit more in depth, but even then, sometimes they don't fully understand because I always had a good understanding of, okay, what is making someone feel comfortable at your facility? Because you never know why they're going to quit. They don't always tell you why. Mm-hmm. Like I said before, they just be like, well, I think we're going to take a break. It's like, well, some part of what we were supposed to do was not being done.
It's funny you mentioned that because when I was working for you, there was, and I still remember this, I accidentally left out a trash bag. And I remember you sent me a picture of it, and then you sent a text. Yeah. And you weren't mad, you weren't mad and you weren't yelling at me or anything, but I remember you sending me a very detailed text on why this can't happen instead of reaming me for it. It was more of you wanted to give me, you did. Yeah. And I now after you say that, all of this, it just makes sense to me now. I get it, and it's honestly just cool to hear you say that because I remembered that moment. That's awesome. I wanted to ask you, so this is going to be two different things because I'm hoping that there's two different answers, but what is the biggest transformation that you've had with a client, the biggest transformation, most weight loss or just biggest difference in image of themselves? And then also, do you have a transformation of a client that emotionally just made you feel unbelievable? Not necessarily it was the biggest change, but you went home after seeing this client after a couple months and being wow, emotionally it just touched you, I guess.
A lot of transformations that happen are not always on the outside. And when you continuously have people coming to you and telling you something that you don't expect, they're like, Mike, this place has changed my life. And I'm looking at them like, well, you might have lost 5 pounds or something. You look more fit than you did when you started. So I'm like, elaborate on that. They're like, it changes your mentality when you're in the right place with the gym and the culture and what it does for you socially. And people are struggling out there. Let's not ignore, people are struggling in other areas out there, and fitness really, really helps with that, especially if you're in a place that everyone greets you, everyone's very nice to you, and you're getting a good result also. So I do have some people that lost a considerable amount of weight, and I don't think those are our big successes. I think I have there. I'm gonna talk about someone that's a little younger, and they got into this and they kind of went all in on it. And I look back at let's say they joined when they were 14 years old. I don't know. It might have been 13. His name is Brian, and he just kind of dove in and trusted us, and he was maybe with a couple different trainers, and a lot of 13 and 14-year-olds don't have the work ethic that we got out of this guy. And it turned into now he's a little bit of a specimen, and he's a couple years older, and he's on the wrestling, and he can take on anything. And I think he joined the wrestling team. But it's the point that the next 50 years of his life are different because of this intervention that we've had, this connection we've had with him. He knows how to work out now. and he knows how to get in the right mindset for himself. And so that meant a lot to me. Anybody that comes up and says they've changed their mindset on something, because I know if you change their mindset, they can, let's say they lost 20 pounds, an adult client or something, they can go gain that back, but their mindset is still there somewhere. So you know that even on their own, they could do something to improve where they're at, you know. But then the other part of it is when I have kids or young athletes that tell me that Functions of Life is their favorite place to be. And like, I'll never forget when a friend of yours, Tyler, said that. Tyler said that.
Really?
And that sticks with me, you know, because if your gym has that kind of culture and is that type of place to where it's someone's favorite place to be, that means a whole lot. And with a lot of young kids, I'm not saying Tyler lacks a lot of confidence. I think he has pretty good confidence, right?
I would say, I would agree with you.
Buddy Tyler. But not all kids have confidence. And when you have a place that is that comforting and welcoming to all athletes, you know, aside from Tyler, you can get so much more out of them in their life when you give a kid confidence. So I do American Ninja Warrior program. I've been doing that for about 8 years.
I was just about to start asking about that, but yes, keep going.
And so some people are like, so you train like little 4 and 5 year olds? I'm like, yeah, I do. And I do their birthday parties too. We used to do like 200 a year. And so they're like, okay, you train athletes, adults, and Ninja Warrior. I'm like, yeah, because Ninja Warrior, you're getting them at such a young age and you're making them fall in love with the process of training. And I was the one that got a kid to do his first 50 sit-ups in a row, and they'll remember that the rest of their lives. And I think that's so cool because they'll never forget how I made them do this, this, and this. They just don't. I see kids, you know, 5 years later at the grocery store, and they say, hey, do you remember me? I'm like, I don't know. You look a little familiar. Like, you look older. Did you come to Ninja Warrior? I know to ask that. They're like, yeah, I did my birthday party there when I was like 7. I'm like, oh, what's your name? And sometimes I remember. And it's just something they don't forget. And when it comes to that category of legacy, that's a really important thing because you know you made some type of impact that might not matter a whole lot, but if it matters that much, then you made your dent in society, you know? So
genius idea, by the way, Ninja Warrior, like unbelievable idea. How did you come up with that? Was that Is that something that you knew going into starting a gym?
No.
Or like, how did you,
when your back is against the wall and you got to find ways to like make money and, you know, so initially that's part of it right there is like, okay, how do we generate revenue? How do we provide services for people? And I had somebody that we taught fitness classes and some of the kids from the parents that were coming were just climbing on everything. And I'm like, listen, if I build like a little rock wall or something, would you guys like use it? And then, so I built a rock wall in the corner and I can't even believe I did that. Like it's not a good business decision to just put a rock wall in the corner of like a fitness place. But, and they would use it for an hour. They would be on this rock wall for an hour. And I'm like, do you want me to build something else? And I'm not much of a carpenter, but I can build stuff, you know, but I had to learn really fast. And so I built a couple things.
Yeah, you keep going.
And said, I built a couple things and then it turned into somebody needed a birthday party. And I'm like, I think I can do a birthday party. We just need tables and like I need to make some type of creative event that people are interested in. And we did a birthday party. Then I'm like, I think I can do another one. So then we did a much more official birthday party. And then it turned into, hey, my 6-year-old, 7-year-old, they wanted to do like weight training and stuff. Can we do something? I'm like, little young, because it only matters if they can pay attention. And most 6 and 7-year-olds, they're not really ready for weights because they're not responding to our corrections and stuff like that. And it's not really worth it until they're 8, 10 years old, whatever. But I'm like, we could do something. I'm like, why don't we do a little class? And I'll do like a little youth class for Ninja Warrior. And it was like 4 kids. And I might have had 4 kids for like a couple months. But at the time, that was $30 twice a week. You know, so I was like, we got to make this all work somehow. And if that's something that generates a little revenue, fine. You know, I made a lot of sacrifices. I didn't have a lot of fun in my late 20s trying to get this gym going. But so then it just turned into they referred their friends. They brought kids. Before you know it, I had 25 kids in a class, and it turned into probably one of the biggest marketing things that we've ever done, because for every kid that comes, they fill out a waiver, and then they're in your computer system. And then every person in the family can benefit from FOL. We just have to show them how. So I get their mom and dad to work out in class at the same time as their kid in Ninja Warrior, their 13-year-old kid that wants to be more confident and more athletic on the soccer field, trains with another trainer in back, and you get a whole family to join the gym. And it's hard for a whole family to quit a gym because they all love it. Mm-hmm. And if one person is not loving it, it's like, too bad, we all love it, so we're not leaving.
I bet Ninja Warrior was like a great funnel for these kids. You know, they're working out in like that side gym, and they keep peeking over into like the bigger gym and seeing all the adults working out. I bet it was a great funnel. I bet were a lot of kids from that Ninja Warrior, did they end up doing training? Yeah,
because we have 3 gyms, and each of them are about 4,000 square feet. And so in one gym, it's Ninja Warrior, and they can peek in and see. And I tell them, I'm like, hey, once we graduate from Ninja Warrior, you move on to strength and conditioning with a trainer or classes in summer camps or whatever. And so a lot of our kids that do strength training, they were in Ninja Warrior. Almost every kid in Brecksville, Brevi Heights, North Royalton has done Ninja Warrior at some point. If for 8 years I probably did 1,500 to 2,000 birthday parties in that amount of time. Well, maybe like 1,500. But if every birthday party has 20 kids, and they get exposure to us at some point, and so then whenever they come, they're like, "Hey, Coach Mike, do you remember me?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Like, I was in Ninja Warrior, like, way back when." I'm like, "Wow, geez, welcome back."
Was it how like per week? How many birthday parties were you doing for Ninja Warrior?
At its peak, it was 4 to 5 birthday parties, but it's only on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because they're normally in school.
Yeah.
So I'd have a Saturday to where, everyone else is watching Ohio State Michigan game, and I'm doing 4 birthday parties on a Saturday, back to back, starting at 11:30.
How I want to talk about that, because I came up to you the other day and you talked about it with me for a second. Working 60-hour weeks or 70, 80-hour weeks, and not really getting paid too much. Yeah. How did you mentally, how were you able to handle that? How were you able, that beginning part of the gym business where everyone else is, out on Saturdays and Sundays or whatever, and you're working, how did you avoid burnout essentially?
First of all, I couldn't go out. I didn't have money to do, you can't. You just and I remember I had a girlfriend at the time, and she would offer to be like, "Hey, do you want to go to this place? I'll pay for it." And then as a man, it's not a good feeling. And I'm like, that's great, but I cannot continue. I have to be a provider myself. So it drives you. And it wasn't as much of a problem for me. I was starting to create this business way before it even happened. When I was in a mentorship program in San Diego, I sat down for 4 hours one day and I made the whole business plan. And 4 years later, that was the business plan for FOL. But I made it 4 years prior. And because my vision of it never changed, I always knew what direction I wanted to go with it. But it's not hard when your back is against the wall. For real. When it's I have to make this work because I don't have any backup plan. And so you sit, it's almost like a hobby too. If it's more of something that you love to do, it's not working hours in the week. You just always do it because it's I have a hobby that I might get paid for one day. That'd be nice, and the ideal thing is to get paid for that. But it wasn't like that at the beginning. I'll never forget my first 4 years, my W-2s. I can't even believe that. But it was what it was because I put money back into the business because I believed in the end result. And I had hiccups along the way. Don't get me wrong. I had big hiccups along the way. I'd have some good help that comes in and they leave me out of nowhere. and some scary moments, but I took some loans from some family members, and we had very structured contracts and in ways of paying them back and everything. And I'm like, I can't let my family down. I need to pay them back. And so,
just going balls to the wall,
dude. It's amazing what you would do. And I'll never forget. I'm like, all right, I have to make some content. This was like 2012. I'm like, I got to make some content, so I need to post a YouTube video about what I do. And looking back, I have these videos and it's sad, but from one of those videos, I had a guy comment on the video and he's like, hey, I'm in Cleveland. Like, where are you at? This video is awesome. And it was a video of me and my brother doing TRX in Myrtle Beach, 100-degree weather. I'm like, okay, is this for real? Like, yeah, do you want to meet with me? And you might know him, Jerry.
Jerry
Wachna.
I don't.
Mohawk guy.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
And he found me through a YouTube video that
Really?
at the time, you don't know how any of these marketing things are going to play out. And that video should have never gained me a client. And it got me somebody that I'm friends with to this day, but we really helped this guy. And he was a great piece of our culture at FOL. And he found me through a YouTube video. So and I knew that at the time, you have to put the seeds out. You don't know what's going to grow. You just have to put it out as much as you can. Now, did I know what I was doing at the time? Not really. I was putting seeds out in places that they weren't going to grow, and I didn't know that. So,
for someone looking to, not necessarily start a business, what advice would you give them? They don't really know what they want to do. Like they're young like me. They really, so many options out there, especially with social media. I mean, it seems like there's almost too many options. What advice would you give someone to just picking something that actually works out for them? Do you have any advice for them on that?
Yeah, it's stay away from the instant gratification of anything. And over the years, it's more and more about that. I give you a lot of credit for what you're doing with your podcast, because how much money are you making on it? No. Okay, maybe you are. But you're doing it because you're just trying different things. Yeah. And if there's ever a time to try different things, it's right now. Like, you do not have a family. You do not have a lot of extra responsibilities. Whereas, what time is it right now?
9 or 8
on a Friday night.
8 on a Friday night. Yeah.
Okay. What are some friends that you have that are doing on a Friday? You get what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So it's where your priorities are, and it depends on like how bad do you want to succeed? Is it as much as you need to breathe? Like that type of thing. And you're willing to do those things where other people, they're not built like that. So you can find a way to get yourself built like that. You can change your mindset, but you have to put yourself in many different opportunities you might not even know that you like podcasting until you tried it. And it's like, wow, I really love doing that. And I love what I got out of that. But you would have never known if you didn't just try it. And then someone would say, well, it costs money, the equipment, the time, and, what if it goes nowhere? I'm like, yeah, what if it goes nowhere? Who cares? Like,
I'm out like $300 if it goes nowhere, which is,
yeah. And some would say that that's a big dent in their income. It's like, all right, take a real hard look at that. Is it really? Like, okay, some people aren't making a whole lot, but there's so much you can do. And everything that you want to learn, you can learn it on the internet. Like, on YouTube. You can almost learn anything. So it's not like it was 30 years ago. And so the opportunities are all in front of our face. It's like, how bad do you want it? And along the way, you might try to be a fitness trainer, or you might try to start your own business. But through that path, you have to do all these different things that you might not want to do, but you're dabbling in different, areas of study, surrounding those things. And you might realize that you're going somewhere else, but you won't ever realize that unless you try things. A lot of people in college, they say, oh, I want to be a strength and conditioning coach. I'm like, oh yeah, they get paid like $30,000 a year. You're going to sustain that and work 60 hours a week? And they're like, no, I want to be like a head strength and conditioning coach. I'm like, okay, do you know what it takes to get to that point? Like several years of dedicating your time to that college or whatever it is, just to get to that one head position that, sure, they make a great deal of money and stuff. You don't have a lot of time on your hands. So you got to think about what you really want. And it's different for everybody. It's just
what you just said right there, with the whole, I want to be a strength and conditioning coach, and you saying, do you know what actually goes into that? I feel like that is like the problem that this podcast solves is a lot of people choose these majors. They spend $100,000, $200,000 on a major that they know nothing about. They don't know a single thing about. They don't actually know what the day-to-day of that job looks like. And that's why I think this podcast, I've learned so much from this podcast already, and just, being able to actually hear about what it was like to do what you do might answer a whole bunch of questions that someone out there who's looking to start a gym, a lot of the questions that they had. And so that's why this is awesome. And so I really appreciate you for being on the podcast. I wanted to ask.
Can I say a little something about actually being a personal trainer though?
Sure.
Because I'm now more of a business owner, but for many years I was the personal trainer at my gym. And you have to be very good at that craft to be able to create a bigger business with it. But most people think that being a personal trainer, you have to have a big directory of exercises in your mind, and you have to do this, and you have to do all this flashy stuff, and it's nothing near what people think it would really be. It is day-to-day customer service with people that need your attention, and to stay motivated on a daily basis, weekly basis. And it's the logistics of putting them into your schedule and making sure you text them back in a timely manner, and making sure that you are not late. And just like anything else, but most jobs are like this. So if there's any piece of advice, whatever job that you have, don't be a dirtbag. That's number one, because there's a lot of dirtbags out there. So all of a sudden, if you're not like a piece of shit, you're already up here. And if you show up on time, you're communicative with your boss, with your clients, and you do all that, you're up here. Then the rest of it is you'll learn over time. And so it's a lot of the finer details that we said earlier that no matter what profession you're in, that's a big deal. Because especially as an employer, I'm looking at those things. If you're coming in a couple minutes late after your clients every time, I know what kind of impact that has over time, and it's not good. And so they might be a great trainer. They might be the highest certified trainer that you've ever met. It doesn't matter if you don't have a way of waking up and showing up on time.
It's funny you mentioned when I was playing tennis back in high school, I had a tennis instructor or a tennis trainer who I went to on the weekends, and he was a great guy. I loved, out of all the tennis teachers I ever had, I loved when he was training me the most, but I stopped going to him because there would be Sunday mornings, I'm a kid, there would be Sunday mornings when I would get there at like 6:30, 7 a.m. and he would show up like 10 to 15 minutes after, sometimes 30 minutes after, and he would still give me the full hour.
Sure.
But eventually it got to the point where it was like, I can't keep on waking up this early and you're not even here. And I don't, like you said, sometimes you don't know the reasons that people leave. He might have never known the reason why he never got a text from me ever again.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I want to ask you, because working at Functions of Life, at least in my experience, you have a great team. Aaron, I love Aaron. What advice do you have for how did you find this team? How do you find great people? Like, what do you look for in people specifically? And what advice would you give to someone who's maybe starting a business, who's looking to hire someone, but doesn't want to make the mistake of hiring the wrong person?
This is the hardest thing they will ever deal with in their professional career as a business owner. And I can't say I've nailed it, but I think a lot has to do with luck, coming across the right people first. And then once you have them, you do have to take care of them in a way. You do have to make them realize that, okay, here's the path that we want to be on. Tell me what path you want to be on, and let's merge that path. And let's make sure that we have the same type of vision with that. That gives them some, because if it's a full-time employee that wants to make it a career, like, because personal training, some people might view it as, I'm going to do this for a couple of years and I'm going to do something else. It's like, I don't see it that way. I'm like, this is our career. And they're like, well, I don't know how much I could really make doing this. I'm like, you can make a lot. And so we discussed that. And there's different parts of the business model that I made in Functions of Life to make it to where they're not making $28 in an hour. There's times they've made $160 in an hour. And a lot of people listening to this might be like, what? How's that possible? It's possible. It's group training. And so you have many more people that pay a lesser rate, and they all share the hour. And the trainer gets a pretty good percentage of that. Now, if you train multiple people, that's harder, and you do have to pay attention. As soon as you're kind of not paying attention, someone's going to be like, I don't know if this is right for me. But going back to the team, there's a lot of different personalities. Not everyone's the same. I will say everyone has to get along. And if there's any type of conflict, you have to be, I'll call it the bad guy, and kind of tackle that a little bit, because you're the one that has to deal with the conflict and kind of resolve it. And when you're with each other every single day, you see them way more than your family, friends, anything. It's quite a dynamic. So you have to really figure that out. Going back to the music, like not all of us agree on what music we should play or the temperature the room should be in. Like I say, it needs to be at 58 degrees, but Holly's like, it needs to be at 65. She wants it warmer. I'm like, but your clients don't want it to be that warm because they're working out. We're the ones not working out. So I'm not saying she's wrong. She's going to be watching this, but but it's a differing opinion of what we believe is right for our clients. And I am the boss at the end of the day, but I'm not always right. You have to understand that as the boss. I'm also the one that makes the decisions. And at the end of the day, I have to live with the good decisions and the bad decisions, but you're not always right. And over the years, you do learn that. Most of the time I'm right. but it's that's why you have to ask their input as well. And they're not always going to have the best input. And you have to take some of that and, thank you for your input. I'll take a look at it. But at the end of the day, you have to make the decisions for the business. And as long as you have a good heart and you're doing it for the right reasons, because you're doing it for them too, for their path of employment, and you're doing it for your clients and the future of FOL, as long as you're doing it for all the right reasons, people are going to see it as, you did some things wrong here and there, but you're going to not be perfect, but nobody is. So, and if your team knows that you're trying your best and you're present, you're not some absent business owner, that goes a long way as well. So, and you can only do your best. And if you care about your business, care about your people, care about your clients, you can only do your best.
How do you, when you're dealing with like your employees, how do you draw that line of, making things, very inclusive, very comfortable, like very fun, but still having, the ruling with like an iron fist? Like, how do you personally handle that? I'm curious, do you figure
my perspective is I have a lot to learn on that, but someone else's perspective, I might be really good at that. And I don't even know that. You
were great at it.
Well,
when I was working there, 100%.
I always see it as I can improve on how I'm being as a leader, as a manager at the facility, because it is very hard. And I could tell you right now, I think we have 13 employees between FOL and Shred. And with 4, maybe 5 of them, I had to have sit-down talks this last week. Just because you have to realign and you have to communicate more because something is going wrong. Or you just have to meet and discuss some things. But it's not easy conversations because every day you're friends. Be like, hey, you see the game last night? Yeah, Cavs got whooped, whatever. And you're friends day to day. And then one day you have to sit down and be like, I'm your superior and we need to talk about this issue. And it's not easy. But as long as they know that you're having this talk because of something that is necessary, it's almost like you're their uncle or something like that. Like it's like, hey man, but we got to talk about this, because I'm looking out for you. I care about you and they need to know that you care about them. And I hope that you genuinely do care about them. That's why I say you kind of have to like your employees if you're going to be with them that often. But it's not easy, man. But at the end of the day, all those conversations that I had to have this week, I would say 4 out of the 5 of them went pretty good. And they're not always going to go well because somebody might have different plans for themselves or a different vision or, but you can only do your best.
Yeah.
Can't beat yourself up over it. I used to really analyze like, I should have done this differently. Now I have an 8-month-old at home. Like, I have many things to think about. And so I can't dwell on certain things. You have to make a decision and just move on.
Where do you see functions of life moving forward? Like, what is the future of functions of life? Where do you hope it goes? And then another question can answer, I don't know if it's the same answer or if you can answer separately. Where do you see your life going in terms of like your career and your life in general?
Yeah. This is a really thought out thing that I do every year. And so all those categories that I talked about, I have everything written out on like where I want to be in a year, 3 years, 10 years, whatever. So with functions of life, we tried to build a building and we tried to go big because I'm not retiring anytime soon. And my trainers, we're going to be doing this. I have to put them in a position of maximum success. So we tried to build a building. I learned a lot about that. Maybe not the greatest idea. I lost a lot of money. And I learned that not everyone is looking out for your best interests.
Wait, when you say build a building, you mean another gym, like to move functions of life or just another functions of life?
Edgerton and Broadview.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Now I know what you're talking about. Okay.
So we tried to build a facility. It was $3.2 million. Doesn't mean you have to have that money, like you just have to find a way to get a bank to support you on that. Well, they don't like fitness businesses. No matter how successful we were in the previous 5 years, they might not want to give you the money unless you give them a higher percentage and a higher down payment. So they appraised it. It appraised at something outrageously higher than what the project would have cost, and it wasn't going to be worth it. So they wanted $1 million cash to get this going. I'm like, why would I not just ask 5 gym members to support us financially, and I'll give them a good return because they believe in us more than you do apparently. And so the project had to stop, and it was sad because I calculated about 280 hours into this project over the span of like 18 months. And I was like devastated because I put in so much time and energy towards this, and I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I was doing all the right things. And between a broker, the bank, your realtor, the builder, not everybody cares about what's going to happen to you if this doesn't work out. So I probably lost like $60,000. But at the time, that's a good chunk of money. I'm a finance guy, so I think about like if I had $60,000 in this account and I've had it there for 10 years, it turns into this. It's like, man, 60,000 is not 60,000 because, and so it halted it, and it made it to where I had to figure out what's the best plan for FWell, because maybe it's not a new building. That'd be great. That's some really good goals, but maybe that's not the best option, because if it puts us at too much of a risk, I'm risking my livelihood, my income, and all my trainers' income, because I would have to get rid of some of them to make up, like if we were in a bad place or something. I can't put them at risk like that. Not everyone knows this side of it. Like they just see it as like, oh, he didn't want to do the project or something. Like, no, like I wanted to, but it was very risky. So as I get older, I think FWell will still be there, but there has to be more people to take the reins on FOL, because I'm still going to be running it, but maybe not in the capacity that I am now, because I'm still working a lot of hours, and the other trainers will have to step up in some manager positions. But as you train these people, the same people that we've been training for like 10 years, they're getting older too. So they might have different needs. We have 13 barbell rack stations in there, and some of our clients that are moving on from 52 years old, and over the span of FOL's life so far, now they're 65, upper 60s, their workouts might look a little bit different, so we just have to kind of evolve with that. So as far as, you asked me 2 questions. You asked me about FOL.
Yep.
So we're gonna keep the pace. We're gonna try to help as many people as possible with what we know about fitness, sports performance. We help a lot of athletes, a lot. And we take a lot of 12, 13, 14-year-olds and really transform their direction in high school. And it's just kind of getting out the good word on that, So if over the years that we can kind of maximize the amount of people that we help with that. And also, I'm very focused on providing good careers for the trainers that I have. I don't want them to be like, I don't know if I'm making enough. I have to really figure out if I should stay in this. Like, I don't want them to think that. I want them to have all the opportunities possible. And so there's that part of it as well. And so then for me, we have a 6-year-old and we have an 8-month-old, and I just moved back into town. I moved out of town for a little bit. And so now I found, where I'm going to live for the next however many years. And it's kind of just like dad life, that I've been waiting to be a dad for a long period of time. I knew this is something I wanted in my life. And so now here I am, and it's a different world, man. You start to look at everything from a different lens when you got a little girl looking up at you every day. So
I want to ask, do you mind if I
you can ask me anything. Yeah.
Okay. What's been the biggest change in yourself since having a daughter that you've noticed?
I don't stress about anything too much. I didn't before. I'm somebody that doesn't get stressed out very much. But now, if there's an issue at work, whatever, relationship stuff with my friends or family or whatever, none of that seems to matter as much because I have something that matters so much more. But in a good way. I'm not saying they don't matter. I'm just saying it puts it in perspective to where at the end of the day, like, we teach a bunch of people lunges and squats and bent. If we screw something up or whatever, it's not the end of the world. If I mess up someone's payment, it's like, all right, I can just return it and I'll fix it tomorrow, whatever. Whereas sometimes to that person talking to me, it's like, oh my, you have to return this right away. Like, it's like, all right, doesn't stress me out. I'm going to fix it. I'm sorry. Like we made a mistake on this or something. Or if an employee is having, they have bad days and you have to deal with that as, because they might be freaking out about, they lost a couple clients or something. It's like, all right, well, let's talk about what we need to do going forward. And if you want to meet tomorrow, I can meet for like a half hour. And there's nothing that deserves that much anxiety, because now, you're having kids is just a different world. And now you want to take care of yourself in a different way, and you want to make sure you're as healthy as long as you possibly can be, and you're in the right mindset. And when Christy was pregnant with Isabel, I had a religious experience that took me to a different place in my life, and I never thought that would happen. I've always said, I'm like, oh, I'm a religious person. I didn't really know what that was until this certain day. And after this certain day, I was struggling with the morality of the world and the meaning of life and things like that. The typical things that could lead somebody to be a little bit more religious. And from that day, I was much different because, I was on YouTube every night researching meaning of life type things. And it always led to God. So it's like you have to know where you came from. I think it's very important to know where you came from. And you can debate where we came from till the end of time. That's what people do every day, is they debate between where human existence came from. But you also have to make a decision on what you believe. I think so. You don't want to be in limbo. I think you want to make a decision on what you believe. And so that helped me through a lot of things, because then you can go to the next step. Okay, where do we get our morality in the world? Where does that come from and why? Yeah, we get it from our friends, our family, whatever. But there's a religious side of that as well from the Bible. So, and that helps guide our lives into knowing right and wrong. Every decision that you make, if you make it in the eyes of like what you believe you should be doing, decisions are a lot easier. So that was a really helpful time in my life, and even going forward, it's still helpful because I have so much more clarity on some things. And I credit a pastor that I train, his name is Dave, and anytime I have questions, I train him at 6 a.m. and I just run them by him. I'm like, hey man, I got a burning question in my mind about this, and this, and he always has an answer. It's great. And so sometimes it just gives you the feeling that there's more answers out there than you ever thought. And it's just, but you have to believe in God, and you have to believe in where we really came from. So
I feel like, unless I misheard you, you said that there was a moment that made, is that something you would like to talk about? I'm curious what that
January
moment was.
6th is the day of the Epiphany. And I didn't know that. It was a Saturday, and I was just like kind of freaking out. Like an anxiety attack. And
really?
I was like, there was a lot of that leading up to this. I was having a lot of stress from a lot of different angles in my life. Beginning of the year, you own 2 gyms. There's a lot going on. I have a baby on the way. The day of the Epiphany, in a nutshell, like when believers all of a sudden become believers. And there's much more to that. But and I probably wouldn't even tell it right. Dave does an amazing job of talking about the day of the Epiphany. And so I text him, I'm like, hey man, you got time like before or after our session to talk on Monday? Because like I got some things I got to talk about. And he's always willing to be there for me. So end of our session, I get into it. I'm like, hey, Saturday, I didn't do anything. I just sat at home. I was on YouTube, just researching a bunch of stuff. Like, what does this mean? He's like, you know what day that was, right? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, that was the day of the Epiphany. And then he explained that, and I was like, what? And this wasn't some fake thing. Like, I mean, it was like an anxiety attack all day, but it was like a religious feeling behind it. And still don't know everything that it meant, but like it meant something, And so I started talking to him, and that made me dive into some things a lot deeper. Because you just want, at the end of the day, a lot of us just want answers in our life of like, why should I be doing this? Why should I be doing this? Why is somebody that rapes a child forgiven by God? Why is that? And those are questions that people might ask themselves when it comes to believing in God. And so it just makes you think about the morality in the world and what is supposed to drive you as a father, because that's now my main role. I, at one point, was a military man. I was a personal trainer. I was a business owner. And now I'm a father. And so from these angles, I knew what my life needed to be. Well, I need to teach people fitness. I need to, follow orders in the military, and I need to make sure these F-15s get up off the ground and the radar navigation works okay. Now I'm a father. And so now it's a whole different thing, and I need God for that. And I didn't know it until it hit me on that certain day. So
it's it's almost like I'm seeing a sign from doing these podcasts. You guys will see it in the previous episode from this. John Carlo, he's also very strong with his faith, and he tells a great story about something that happened with him. I won't say. He explains it fantastic. I could never explain it as well as he does. But for me, I mean, just hearing this out of you and from him, literally like 3 days apart from each other, I mean, it's very powerful words that you just said. Unbelievable. Do you have any recommendations for me, like someone who is just? I'm starting to see so many people starting to get so strong with their faith.
Yeah.
Any recommendations for me to kind of grow my mindset on it?
In my opinion, it hits you when it needs to hit you. Like, I mean, and God uses all of us, and for many different things. And so what it starts to give you more meaning in not just your morality or what you should be doing in your life, even when it comes to money. Like God says, or the Bible says that this money is not ours. This is all just tools that we're using in God's world. Mm-hmm. And nobody knows God's like mission either. You don't know. I didn't know that. I thought he did have a mission. I didn't really know. I went to church my whole life. I didn't know that there was like, he's never came down and said, this is what I want for the world. It's like, we don't really know what he wants. I didn't know that, and so there's still questions out there, don't get me wrong. But if you see it as like, these are all his tools for us to carry out what he wants for us in his life, there's meaning behind that. Now it's like, okay, I think the most powerful thing that you can do is give in your life. I say it all the time. And we're so used to taking everything in our life. We take. We're actually taught to do that because we have to get whatever we can so we can survive and, take. But once you get to a point where you can give more, I'm not talking about just money. You can give somebody respect. You can give someone confidence. You can give someone knowledge. There's so many things you can give. Once you start giving away from yourself, you enter into a different world, and I think a lot of that has to do with what's taught in the Bible and kind of the direction that most of us are starting to go. If think about all aspects of life, like if people gave more, a lot of things are solved. If that's the case, they're not all so worried about themselves. So then it led to me realizing, even though I already knew giving is so important, giving your time, that's another huge one. Giving your time to someone that could make them feel like you love them, and even if it's 5 minutes, it doesn't have to be an hour. It's 5 minutes, and if you have all these different ways that you can give, you put yourself in a different category. Mm-hmm. So
I want to ask you a fun hypothetical question that ChatGPT gave me the other day that I've kind of asked this in the past, but not in this format. Say there was a TV screen right here and you could choose any one moment or time in your life to rewatch from your perspective. Do you have a moment in your life that you would love to be able to watch again on a TV screen?
Wow, that's tough. I would say being in my first gym that I opened up, thinking that I would unlock the doors and people would be flooding in. And I remember I wouldn't even turn the heat on because I didn't want to turn the heat on unless anyone was there because heat costs money. And I was there in an empty gym for a while. And so I don't even know what I did. I brought my dog every day. I knew that because I put out some marketing stuff and I'm like, oh, people are just going to call me or they know class is at 6:00. So they're just going to show up. Nobody showed up to class. I don't even know. What did I do? So I'd love to see on this screen, what I was doing during that time, because I know what other 26-year-old guys are doing. They want to go out, they want to have fun or whatever, but I believed in what I was doing and I wanted it to go somewhere. And I even believed someone would walk in, and eventually someone did. Anna Lucas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She was a big part of the reason why you guys grew so much, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
She's a talker.
She brought in a lot of people, I feel. Yeah. That's what I remember hearing is she...
Well, she wandered in one day, and I was like, hey, welcome. Come on in. And I'm like, anything you need, just let me know. I'll give you an unlimited class pass thing or $100. What do you think about that? She's like, I probably scared her off. And the first class I put her in was with a bunch of athletes. And so... can't believe she stayed. And I can't believe she brought her friends too. And so I said, hey, I'll give you this deal. I just want you to bring a bunch of your friends. Is that cool? And she did. And so they all came. And the majority of those people on that day are still with me today. And you just don't give them a reason to leave. And just, people don't like change. So keep them comfortable. And I'm not saying don't provide a great service. Of course, provide a great service and always take care of them. And those same people, you'll find us at their kids' graduation parties, baseball games. We support them. Those are the people that got you to where you're at. So we don't forget that.
Sure. Very nice. All right, so I feel like, I have a feeling that this camera is going to die, so I want to start wrapping things up a little bit. But
Okay.
This is a great question. I love asking this at the end of my podcast. I want to ask you, what is the best piece of advice you've ever heard or been given?
You have to stay humble in all situations. Like, you make a little bit of money, don't go buy some fancy car. Like, things could change so fast. As much as they changed in a good way for you, they could change the other way as well. So you have to really be humble with where you're at. Never think that you know everything. Always understand that there's somewhere more to go, and your purpose is greater than you even think it is. And so hopefully people out there are doing, high value work and respectable work, and just knowing that there's so many people that can benefit from probably what you're doing, whether it's employees, clients, and just keep yourself in check. And instant gratification, you got to stay away from that in all ways. If you think of all the things that instantly gratify us, it's never anything good. So work towards the future. And if you're young, you should be investing money right now. Mm-hmm. Oh, but what if the market is, the market goes down and this, that, Trump is going to be inaugurated on the 20th. And what if the market, this is a long game. This is not some short-term thing. Like, you put money away regularly, you don't even look at it. And if you do that from age 25 to 65, you are a millionaire. Plain and simple. The formula is pretty easy. Mm-hmm. So plan for the future.
Yeah.
Just quit living in the moment. What if I die tomorrow? I'm like, sure. Then your kids get it. Like, so.
Hey, as Matthew McConaughey said in Wolf of Wall Street, no one knows if a stock is going up, down, sideways, or in circles. Been saying that. But my last question, what is the worst piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Oh, man. There's probably been a lot of bad advice out there. But when it comes to running a business, everyone's going to be in your ear because everyone knows what's best for you and knows what's best for your business. No, they don't. Like, they don't know what you see. They don't know the perspective that you've had on this. And I've been in business many years. And so even at the 10-year mark, so we're like, Mike, you know what you got to do? He's like, you got to do this. It's like, what? Like, so there's some pretty bad advice out there. I can't even pinpoint what one bad thing, but they don't walk in your shoes and they don't think about the risk. Sure, I know you're telling me to do this, but you're not talking about the risk involved. I've built this thing over a number of years, and if this just happens to go bad, you lose everything. No, I'm not really willing to risk that. I get it. You're trying to be very aggressive, but people have ideas for like changing your business model and everything like that. You'll always have 100 ideas in front of you. It's up to you as the business owner to decide what's the most important one to follow up on today. And you have to weed all of them out. And you know what? There's probably some missed opportunities there. There's probably some really good ideas that if you went with it, they would have turned into something great. Can't think about that.
Yeah.
You just got to go day by day and you have to go by what you know and just make the decisions based on your educated experience in your life. So
awesome. Hey, man, this was an unbelievable podcast.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you very much
for being on. I mean, easily one of the best podcasts that I've had.
Thank you.
Not even close. Yeah, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I mean, if you didn't learn anything, you clearly weren't watching or listening, because even I learned so much, and I've known him for years and years and years. But yeah, guys, I believe this is episode 7. So yes, this is episode 7 of the Choose Wisely podcast, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.